Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this session of Kavyadhara, which we are doing on an amazing anthology that has just come out, which is Singing in the Dark. And this is a global anthology of poetry that was, written during the lockdown. And so we have with us the two editors of the anthology, Professor Satchidanandan, Dr. Nishi Chawla, and they will be in conversation with Professor EV Ramakrishnan. And very quickly to introduce you to the two editors, as well as the moderator. Professor Satchidanandan is perhaps the most translated of contemporary Indian poets. He has 24 collections of poetry, 4 books of travel, a full-length play, and I can go on. And he has, apart from being, he has been very closely associated with the Sahitya Academy, and he has won, I think, more than 50 literary awards. And the book that we are going to focus this evening is the anthology that he co-edited with Nishi Chawla, Singing in the Dark, a global anthology of poetry under lockdown, which has just come out in 2020. So Sachida, welcome, and always a pleasure to see you once again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nishi Chawla is with us. This is her second successive year at HLF. She was with us in 2020, which was another kind of event, another place, another event. This, of course, is her second visit to Hyderabad Literary Festival. Dr. Nishi Chawla is an academician and a writer. She has 6 collections of poetry, 10 plays, and 2 novels to her credit. And she has, as I said, co-edited with Sachida Singing in the Dark. And she holds a PhD in English from George Washington University, Washington, D.C., and a postdoctorate from Johns Hopkins University. She has taught at Delhi University, University of Maryland, and she is now on the faculty of Thomas Edison State University, New Jersey. So Nishi, welcome back to HLF. I know this is a completely different setting. This is a completely different format. But we are, as pleased to see you joining us this evening. Thank you once again. And Professor EV Ramakrishnan, everybody knows him as EVR. So Professor Ramakrishnan is a bilingual poet, translator, critic, and he works with and between Malayalam and English. And he's a winner of the Kerala Sahitya Academy Award. And he's presently Professor Emeritus at Central University of Gujarat, Gandhinagar. So, Professor EVR, thank you very much for joining us this evening. And
the pleasure. The pleasure.
Good to see you, sir.
Very happy.
Yeah. So we are looking forward to this session, and about 25 minutes into the discussion or so, I will reappear on the screen, which means that is the time for us to start playing the videos. We, of course, have only 4 videos. That gives you enough time to discuss the anthology. And since this is essentially a poetry reading session, we will have no question answers. So you will have the entire session for you. Thank you so much. And now I hand it over to Professor EVR.
Thank you, Professor Vijayakumar. It's a pleasure. I was part of HLF a few years back.
2014.
14, yeah.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. And the pleasure of attending a literary festival is meeting people, traveling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all those exciting things. But still, I mean, you have kept it. It's really wonderful. I can see how much effort has gone into the planning and you see the logistics at it. And then has a number of translations of his poetry in English. Recently, in 2016, his The Missing Rib, his collected poems written between 1973 and 2015, it came out. That itself actually calls for a celebration because it's a massive volume running to 650 pages. And he has also Misplaced Objects, another very good anthology of his selected poems, While I Write, etc. So his presence in Indian English has been extremely vibrant and it has been translated into world languages across many Indian and foreign languages. And Nishi Chawla, I understand, is also a filmmaker. You have actually is in the process of completing a film, and we all look forward to that during the lockdown period. I'm sure you must have progressed with that. So it's great to have both of you who work with many media. I will actually speak a few things about the anthology and the situation we are in, and then may ask you a few questions. I think discussion will keep to the minimum, and we will read poetry more. I'm sure you are we are all on the same page. Yeah. In fact, the idea of this anthology must have occurred to you sometime in March or around March or April. And we are already in a situation where a new vocabulary about our experiences, words like new normal or social distancing, mask, several words have actually entered our daily life, and they all call for even the word negative actually or positive. These words have actually become more, they have different meanings now.
Again, the opposite meaning.
Yeah, exactly. So it is one of the things which I would like to ask both of you. You see, poetry in a way enables a process of healing. Poetry or art in that sense has always worked with a kind of therapeutic impact on very complex kind of social situations. We all know that art and suffering have the very deep rooted kind of relationship. So the experiential, one of the things that makes this anthology outstanding is it's a kind of transaction between the public and the private. Suffering, this is a public kind of occasion. When pandemic affects world societies across the 6-7 continents, we actually are left with a mind-boggling situation which cannot be comprehended in terms of our everyday. So there is a new kind of everyday experience. So there are lots of poems which actually enable us to enter into this level of complexity, which brings out the fragility of our existence, a kind of evanescence of the everyday world, and the need for reassurance. Sociality always actually operates by bringing out the need for connecting with the other, connecting with others, and connecting with the world around us. So I would like to ask Professor Satchidanandan, one of the phrases in the introduction, it's actually a new aesthetic and a new meaning. So when you put together this global anthology, when you also mention rendering transparent the raw opacity of our altered situation. So there is this raw opacity of our altered kind of social situation. So could you perhaps comment on this new aesthetic, perhaps you actually used or that guided you in selecting the poems and compiling the anthology?
Yeah, in fact, the idea happened sometime in March, as you rightly guessed, and it was Nishi who actually wrote to me asking me to help her with the anthology, to get more poets into the anthology. since I have been. Of course, Nishi also has been to so many literary festivals, and we have quite a lot of poet friends across the world. In fact, yes, we thought this would be producing a kind of new aesthetic, in the sense, I do not know whether we can call it the aesthetics of the pandemic. It is an because it will be we knew it would be a combination of the morbid and the beautiful, because there is this morbidity, depression, solitude, which are some of the the inevitable effects of the pandemic upon all of us. Uh, Many of us have been depressed. Many of us have passed through various kinds of psychological situations where we lose our friends, we lose our relatives, we lose a lot of fellow poets. We have gone through all that. At the same time, when I look out the window, I find nature, is still indifferent. The trees are in full bloom. I can see, and on the videos that I keep getting every day, I see elephants and lions crossing the road very easily, completely unafraid. It is absolutely a new situation, and I can find, even in this city of Delhi, birds which I had never seen or heard before, new kinds of butterflies. So there is an absolute kind of blossoming of nature. So it is a very contradictory situation. There's a kind of new dialectic of experience that seems to be working in this situation. This beautiful nature outside us, which has imprisoned all of us in a sense, and we are looking out the window, out the door, just at this new kind of flowering. So this contradiction perhaps creates a new kind of aesthetic, and our relationship with nature also seems to be changing. Our understanding of nature, the kind of bond we had with the outside world, that seems to have changed in a big way, because even now, after many months, we are having this festival. We are having this festival online, and so there is what is called social distancing. A term I would not like to use in the Indian context, where we have, in the name of caste, we have always observed kind of social distancing. So it is rather, I would call it a kind of physical distancing. And yes, we were compelled to physically distance ourselves. So there was a need to reconnect. There was a need to reconnect in two ways. One is with other human beings, and the second is with nature, because it seems that it is our isolation from nature, our exploitation of nature, which has also, in some sense, recoiled and brought us the pandemic, like it did, bring earlier. Earlier, not pandemics, but various kinds of epidemics, floods, forest fires. So we have been, if I can say so, cruel to nature. We have been greedy. We have been exploiting nature beyond what she can really endure, and so it looks like a revenge that nature is having on us. And so we need to redefine that relationship. We need to reconnect with the nature, learn from the tribal people, as even Noam Chomsky once said. We need to learn from the Adivasis how to live in harmony with nature. And that is one thing. And secondly, we have also to find new ways of connecting with other human beings. Not only here we are connecting with writers, but no, not only writers, but even our own kith and kin, our friends, the people around us. And so we had all these various virtual platforms coming, and trying to create kinds of deeply human links between all of us. So these two altered relationships, one with nature and the other with society, and these perhaps called for a new vision of life, and every kind of aesthetics has also a change of the understanding of life behind it. So the sensibility and existence cannot be completely, delinked, disconnected with each other. So we thought here is an occasion to define this new aesthetic through the responses from poets who might be writing in different languages across the world. So not that we could connect with all of them, but we tried to connect with quite a few of them. And I think we have been able to put together a rather good sample of the kind of writing that was being done during this period.
Yeah. Thank you, Sachi. I think you are right. When we go through the anthology, there are nature functions as a kind of fulcrum around which we actually can reassure ourselves or find a certain assertive voice speaking to us. So that happens in a number of poems. And I would actually ask Nishi for, if continuing the discussion, there is this sense of being immobilized, completely frozen as such, and silence, isolation, and maybe the kind of poems you have chosen, or the kind of the works you have selected, have a certain aspect to it which gives us a sense of release, a sense of moving out, or moving out into, as Satchidanandan also mentioned, a bonding with either human world or natural world. Or what's your take on this? The thematically, how does the volume cohere? What is the coherent aspect which holds the anthology together, apart from the context of the pandemic?
So, of course, as we live through this unique history, the anthology, as if kinetically, it becomes a record of our existential questions, concerns, and experiences of living through the pandemic. So these poems do become a kind of personal narrative and testament, often therapeutic, often sad, angry, funny, optimistic, a kind of outlet of our fears, hopes, and joys, helping us make sense of this new world order and our place in it. So, every social and emotional crisis does inspire and foster creative expression. And the poems, wrestle with the issues surrounding and confronting us now. It's true that having lived through the crisis, the magnitude of this pandemic has changed us all in intangible as well as visible ways, emotionally, psychologically, and socially. In the midst of the hardship and challenges, there's been the sense among many people that this period has helped us evaluate our lives and focus on what's truly meaningful. So the panic and the despair of our changed lives, the incompleteness sensed in virtual visits and encounters, the indeterminacy of our foreseeable future, the trauma and the pain of losing loved ones and seeing so many suffer, the loss of jobs, and the spike in divorce, domestic violence as a direct upshot of the lockdown. The newfound appreciation for possible face-to-face interactions that was previously lost in a world gone virtual. All of these are very tangible social consequences associated with the pandemic. It can, of course, be described as one of the loneliest times for many people when we can reevaluate our wants and needs, our shifting financial priorities, our sense of what is emotionally necessary. So, of course, we all know, and there's a plethora of research that discusses the benefits of solitude, which include enhanced creativity, metacognition, mindfulness. And I think poetry is the platform. Poetry seems to me to be the place where we should be at liberty to unleash ourselves completely, to speak out, to speak back, to strive and to seek out, new life, and comport ourselves with a questioning intensity, with defiance, not to avoid our reality altogether, not even to be a willing prisoner of it either. So, I feel the pandemic has, when you kind of, has in many ways made us rethink, so to say, the ethos of social distancing. The barriers that we've always adopted between each other makes us re-examine whether it is true that it is by a very separation that we live and know each other. So the now familiar term social distance, which I think you as well as Dr. Satchidanandan have both commented on, initially it had an oxymoronic texture. So, of course, several well-known poems about human society recognize that distance plays a role in even our most intimate social moments. Poets remind us that deep feelings of isolation can be contiguous with social interaction, and that sometimes the best thing we can do for our social world is to maintain walls between us and our social bridges. And I think, like the contagion we are fighting, like the changed social dynamics, what binds the poems kinetically, in the anthology, is the fact that they underscore and highlight how distance structures social life. So, there's this complex sense of loneliness, I would imagine. Social distancing is different from more familiar forms of absence. For our purposes, poetry is where social and distance meet in our anthology, and also provides a kind of close analog for what all of humanity is experiencing individually as well as collectively. So that's my response, perhaps, to have very thoughtfully asked us.
Thank you, and you brought up this entire question of suffering of the marginalized. One of the enduring images of the lockdown is the migrant laborers across India walking through miles and miles of our national highways to their hometown. And that's going to actually define, I think it was a defining moment when the question of livelihood, the question of being near to the people you love, or your own small village, though it may not actually offer you livelihood of any kind, but still you want to be very much there. All these issues, and they were discussed, and even in very developed states, the marginalized people have actually been put to a lot of suffering, and it's a solemn moment when we actually, a very somber kind of time we are going through, when suffering of the invisible masses has never been so tragic. In the last, after maybe after Second World War, in fact more people have died in the US than in the Second World War. So maybe we will go back to the poems and read the poems, and maybe after that, and we also remember all those great writers we have lost during this last time. A whole lot of Manglesh Dabrar or Sagata Kumari, or we all have our list of friends and great cultural figures. So we also dedicate the poems we read to their memory as well. So I will request Satchidanandan to read his poems.
I have 3 poems here. I don't know whether I have time to read all. Let me try. On this earth, we landed on earth from different stars. That's why we speak different languages. Each word carries the aura of the memories of the stars we left. In sleep, we travel to those glittering homes. There we speak to our forefathers like geckos that know every one of its walls. We wake up to discover its stardust on our skins. From which star did you come? I ask, watching the blue dust on her shoulders at dawn. She stares jealous at the red dust on my chest. We are now characters in some science fiction. Even our heads do not look human. As we die, we return to the stars we left. We will forget our sojourn on earth. We will float in space as weightless souls until we get another body and another language. I want to be reborn on earth, this time as a tree. You will be a bird perched on its bough. I will recognize you by the blue dust on your wings, and you, me, with the red dust on my bark. This time, we won't quarrel. I'll exchange my fruits for your song. There won't be humans to see or hear it. Butterflies, only butterflies. Another poem. The train. It has something to do with the movement of the migrant workers. Because I live in Delhi, particularly almost every day, I was hearing terrible, tragic stories of these migrant laborers, and how some of them were not, many of them were not able to get any transport, no train, no bus, nothing, and they were walking miles and miles, and these visuals, inspired me to write this poem, The Train. It's about somebody, who is not in the train. The train. That train is going to my village, but I am not in it. Its rails are inside me, its wheels are on my chest, and its whistle is my scream. I won't be there when it comes back to take me, but my breath will travel seated on its roof, guarding my corpse. As the train stops at my village, my life will enter my body and ride my waiting bicycle along the old familiar lanes. My children will come running as they hear its bell. Abu is here, Abu is here. In which language can I tell them it is my dead body that has arrived? Of heaven or of hell? I am somewhere in between. Let the well talk, or the pond. If water refuses to speak, let my life dwell within a crow on the drumstick tree on my courtyard and tell them the truth. And the third part, the circle. Joy is a narrow space between two sorrows, a space lit by the morning sun, where a sunflower is in bloom amidst fresh blades of grass that two people can hardly occupy, and maybe a pale butterfly too. You can dance there with movements and gestures possible in that narrow space, and sing in a low voice, can even laugh mildly, tickling the baby sunlight. But there is little time. You know it too. The sun will soon grow harsh. Sorrows will squeeze you from both sides. You may even get trapped there, never able to get out. When the whole body bleeds, you may suspect that joy is but a snare. It is not all wrong, but you were able to see the flower and dance. But pain, it is eternal and its space infinite, like the abyss that once trapped the earth. You will have to leave the earth to see there are stars even there. Who knows? Your soul may fly across many light years to land in a star. I will gain a new body there. Then you will know joy is but a narrow space between two sorrows. Thank you. These are my poems here.
Thank you, Sachi, for those amazing poems and wonderful reading, soulful. And I am sure some of these images will find resonance with readers who are actually listening from all over the country and maybe even outside. I'll request Nishi to read your poems.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. poem can feel especially alive when you read it to an audience, and it transmits a different kind of power on the page. My poem is titled, the first one, Inside Myself. The virus licks my torn soul, guilt. I sing a love song to it, tempting the faint thump, causing my heart to fissure its fatty lumps. Pretend I live on a moon of my own landing, turn my flesh inside out, listen to the chirping of birds, amazed that so much beauty could still exist amid club-like spikes that crush the breathing soul, lavender storms that hit, unfounded hopes cluster phylogenetically, a pestilence that asks for enormous surcharges, lethal as the protean cry of daggers stabbing me yet again, quietly slithering out, a warlike stratagem as birds orchestrate their cheerful songs to each other, embraced in positive sense, RNA, the hard truths that no flowers on our windowsills would relive, proteins that slice human voices, sliced lungs pause, then breathe. When I follow its replication pattern somewhere, a flood of tears ensue, attached to a host receptor, slyly pursuing a purpose-driven path. Winter turns into stunned spring, and yet the stalk of the spike molecule sticks, digs deep within, encodes hollow dreams, hollowed out. In the open fields, the birds shriek with intense, tormented sounds, adopt a transmembrane-like structure, and more and more are rendered mute. Transfixed fear, packaging signals of sliding down, motionless companions that express a fear, triggering viral particles, spreading out, binding domains of dazed displeasure, disbelief, a tissue culture, receptors and protein that inject so much, a solar vision that gives me a new calm, a prayer that sparks nuclear capsids of refined pleasure, gone. I struggle with myself again, umpteen times more. The next poem is titled Infinite Karmas. At the beginning was the outbreak. Blobs of swarming virus caught red-handed, fastened themselves on human lungs, above those karmic laws that got bled out. The stars rip the effects of human intention, strayed, swelled. How one lives, front-lined with gloves and masks, mock at causality, casually proliferate in invisible tweets with red mountain clouds, dismantle the short supply of legends that look us in the eye, comfort us for no reason. Does it clink a glass or two now that the karmic wheel got broken? Does it dodge bullets, whittled by the dark scraping, bend its shapes inside the deep flesh in cruel thumps, knowing no clear patterns of reactionary consequences? Pacing oneself to match an invisible, fugu-like enemy that rings in waves of new energy, in unison with the crevices the virus revisits, wild affliction, dead to the pangs of love, of lust, reaping the aroused days of its own self, karmascapic bounds. There is the blind eye of fate here, discriminate between willing it, nor etched, nor accrued, in discrete scoops, shields of our own actions, generating, flourishing between the responsible and not so. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful poems, and I'm sure you have been, as you actually said, the personal encounter with the morbid and the very all those things you mentioned actually come alive. I would read these 3 poems of mine, they are short and very brief. Maybe if time permits, we can actually take, I would at least suggest we read one poem from Manglesh Dobral. He is part of the anthology. I will request Satchidanandan to, after I read my poems, at least to read Manglesh, and then we can, of course. I have 3 short poems. You see, I have gone through the experience of plague in Surat. That was in 1994, and I had a series on those were days which actually also were very violent due to communal violence. So many. So in my mind, plague actually gets in a way merged with several other experiences. Yeah. So, but these poems are different. They were written more recently. But at least the first one actually belongs to that period. Blank page. Blank page. I keep vigil at the river bank. The night says, I am here. The river says, nothing. The moon dredges the riverbed. A giant tusker's shadow emerges from the wreckage of the river. Silence and water. The next poem is titled Untitled. Untitled. Erase yourself. You are one too many. Keep the essential you on a single parchment, unwritten. Be the thread in the needle. Stitch yourself into something strange. Like a thatched house, you should last only for one monsoon. The third poem is titled Otters. Otters taught me how to be. There is no need to be seen to see oneself. Man was a rumor they did not believe in. They were sea-conscious of larger things that stretched beyond the clock and the calendar. As I turned away from them, the crowded seashore became desolate, like a vandalized mausoleum. These are my 3 short poems, and maybe we can actually, both of you can read one poem each of someone whom you actually feel is important. And definitely I would request Professor Satchidanandan to read Manglesh Dobral's poem. Your audio seems to be muted.
Yeah, in quite a few of the previous sessions, I've been reading Manglesh because, you know, this is like a homage to...
Yeah.
Sir, you're on mute. Satchidanandan, sir, you're on mute.
Again, you have...
okay. Yeah. This is a kind of homage we pay to Manglesh Dobral, whom we recently lost to the disease. He already had cardiac problems, and he could not hold out against COVID-19 that attacked him recently. So I remember him fondly, a friend of 40 years almost.
Yeah.
And I read one of his poems called Touch, which is important in the times of so-called untouchability of social distancing. Touch. Touch the things that are kept on the table in front of you. Clock, pen stand, an old letter, the idol of Buddha, Bertolt Brecht, and Che Guevara's photos. Open the drawer and touch its old sadness. Touch a blank sheet of paper with the words fingers. Touch like a pebble the still water of a Van Gogh painting, starting life's hullabaloo in it. Touch your forehead and hold it for a long while without feeling shame. To touch isn't necessary for someone to sit close. It is possible to touch even from very far, like a bird from a distance who keeps her eggs protected. Please do not touch, or touching is prohibited. Don't believe in such phrases. These are long running conspiracies. Religious gurus holding flags, wearing crowns and shawls, bomb throwers, war raisers indulging for keeping us apart. The more dirt, the more waste they spit. Only by touch can they be cleansed. Touch you must, even though it turns things topsy turvy. Don't touch the way gods, priests, bigots, devotees, disciples touch each other's feet and heads. Rather, touch the way the tall grass appears to caress the moon and stars. Go invade, feel the moist sport touch. See if it still remains there or not in these ruthless times.
Thank you. Nishi, can you read one with
Yeah, can
Nishi
we
is
start
reading,
the
we will,
videos? Can we start the videos?
can you allow Nishi to read? We are allowing each one. Sachi read a poem by the Brand,
Fine.
and Nishi would also read a poem by someone else.
Sure.
Maybe
Sure.
might be a short one.
Sure.
So then you can start.
Fine. Fine.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll read Najman Darwish's poem, The Last Mask.
Fine.
I haven't found it yet. The writing that liberates, that I once grabbed hold of, floundering in those suburbs. The writing that resembles passion and youth, and the delights of the flesh in the way it surprises. I haven't found it, and maybe I'll stop looking, for I'm busy with trifles. My knife is dull now, and I'm pretending. I have no time to sharpen it. Time put on its masks and called to me from behind the newborn in the cradle, the infant on all fours, the child's first steps, the stumbling adolescent, the misgivings of the youth, and the grown man's despair. Time called to me from behind all the frail and aging promises, when time has no more masks to wear. But now I've got to crawl and walk and stumble forward and chase down my misgivings and precede all the promises as I stretch myself out in the coffin. The last mask is in my hands, and I must wear it now. Thank you. This is our anthology.
Thank you. And over to you, Professor Vijay Kumar. I think we have stuck to time.
Yeah, we'll have these other poems played now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will play the videos.
Yes.
They are about 13 minutes altogether, so we should be all right. So can we have the first video, please? And this is the video of Amanda Bell.
My name is Amanda Bell, and I'm delighted to have my poem Bumblebees included in the lovely anthology Singing in the Dark. Bumblebees. There was no need to fret about the bees, their fragile nest unlidded as I pulled weeds beneath the apple tree, their squirming larvae naked to my gaze and to the sun. They watched me from the border while I hastily replaced the roof before returning to rethread the fibres of their grassy home. In the cleared weeds, I see their entrance and their exit, how their flight paths sweep the garden in an arc, stitching up the canvas of this space as if they could remake the world which lies in shreds around us. The dome moves as I watch it, the stretching of an inchoate form. When morning comes, it glistens with white dew. My name is Amanda.
Yeah, we'll play all the 4 videos and then, a quick comment or 2, and then we will close. So can we have the second video, please? Diana Bilban Parks.
Hello, my name is Diane Wilburn Parks. I'm reading my poem Isolated Wings from the book. We are now snowed in spring, listening to indulgence from the chirps of birds, fluttering feet, and faces of sun-drenched homes rising, opening the gold of blue skies. The world props against windows and doors, wishing for wings and the songs of birds. For more than 40 days, we've been flying into windows with untrained wings, caged inside walls, inside oily fingerprints left on glass. I keep wiping the edges of you off, cleaning the traces of your wild baby's breath, now marred with Lysol. April cringes inside its bloom, afraid to lurk beyond its curled tongue, leaflet buds. Windows listen for wind-rushed poetic mewlings. The color of dance is a strong song, wept in a brush of uncut grass and the husk of sycamore trees. Sleeves of rice bleed grain by grain. We eat sparingly. We see a man dancing in the center of the earth with meat skins whistling sound like flutes. These isolated iridescent wings can't fly, even fish feathers into water. Life is still aflutter. Paddled fins wade in waters that still flow, and the mist of white clouds return blue. The world props against cheeks and chests. Windows lick the oily salt of our skin, while fingers flap in and out of dreams. Unmasked words wish to be free again. With outstretched wings, we lift our opens, point our perched bodies to the wind. We twist our cages and bend them back, while the cageless man still dances in the feathers of his skin. Thank you. Hello.
Yeah. Now the third video, Grace Cavalieri.
I'm Grace Cavalieri. I'm going to be reading a poem from the book Singing in the Dark. The poem is called The Poet Acts as if Her Thoughts Are Good Enough. Listening is how we learn to talk, to hear the train whistles in the distance. Of course, in the distance, no tracks are here. I wonder where it's going. It's going home without you. Putting things back so even the silence in dreams disappears. Dreams vanish within earshot of the gods. What I will miss most of all is that you were not here with me. Between mind and thought, the moon in springtime, a candle of night lighting the day. Does the moon know it means the end of the day? Like the sound you never hear, as there are no footsteps behind me, as useless as the moon. Pain in the heart again, here it is, if I hold out my hand and give you a key. No matter how far I reach, there is no one to lift the latch beyond the door. There is no key, no hand, and all that remains is the air you wanted and could not hold. The way I pretended there was a key and the door and someone to open it. I'm Grace Cavalieri, reading a poem from Singing in the Dark.
Wonderful. And of course, we'll be ending with Keki Daruwala.
Okay.
So can we have the fourth video, please?
It's been a bad year for all of us with this virus, and I was asked to write a poem, and I went to the Black Death, and I'm going to read a few poems from the Black Death. The first is a prologue. It's a spoof on the Black Death, the first one, because I didn't want to make it too dismal completely. Here it is, prologue to the sonnets. The devil, and it's the devil speaking. The devil never left Black Death in the foyer to be discussed at length in devastating detail. Cleverer than Satan and Iblis, those soul sawyers, he couldn't ever fail. He checked out of Hilton. Memory had him dismayed. Didn't the hotel echo some rhymester of yore? Yes, of course, the guy who needed hearing aids, his verse sonorous as a river gorge. Having planted Brexit, the devil thought of exits, making a run for it, though sad to leave Hilton. In poor English, he said, "This place is truly gala." His task severe, bury memories of Black Death in some catafalque, beyond the reach of sonneteering bums like Daruwala. I'm reading the first sonnet from the Black Death, and it's pretty dismal. Okay. The summons were from the Byzantium court. He was wanted there. The king's son was dead. The advance guard of bugles had got to him. How did he take it? He asked. The king's eyes bled. The messenger answered. Isaac, coiner and scribe, tried to address the king in that ornate hall, but hysteria ruled. Courtiers screamed. The Tartars, stricken with disease, threw plague across the wall. They catapulted corpses into the city. The royal ribs withstood a shudder. Think of Kaffa, that Genoese port, not terror, but think of pity. Leave witches alone and their ghastly spells, and keep the Jews away. They've suffered enough, and no, they haven't put poison in our wells. Then I go to poem number 3. I'm skipping one. And this is the queen who has lost her son at the age of 14 from the Black Death, which means plague. And she is speaking now. How did we falter? My queen asks, tongue timorous as it steps out from her just withered face. Were defilers aboard in our kingdom, blasphemers? Did usurers have a free run of the marketplace? Has your executioner taken leave of his acts? He is dead, my lady, of the disease. And during Lent, did the peasantry fast with us? Some were lax, but our kingdom's no longer a divine instrument. Whose wrath have we incurred then? Some scullions from devil's kitchen, or an enraged spark of divine? Wife, too many heresies around, trackers of bad smells, gluttons for good beef, but guzzlers of bad wine. Like a boiling stream cutting through hell, the plague moves on. For death, it is harvest time. Who dies tomorrow? Only rodents can tell. Shall I read the last one now?
Yes, please.
The Cardinal from Venice. The Cardinal visits Byzantium, and well, here's the sonnet with 4 lines as a prelude. A pilgrim to Jerusalem, the Cardinal drops by. Queen kisses his ring. He offers his limp hand to me. I ain't gonna kiss no such thing. And then the sonnet. He starts with souls dying without absolution. This night-long traffic isn't going well. He shakes his locks. No penitence, no confession. The spirit in agony, hissing away to hell. What of the stricken, I ask? Shillings as they clink in their armpit. Why so bogged down with the soul? We need doctors more than priests, don't you think? My queen looks at me, her eyes burning coals. He changes track. The entire order will be upset. The Holy Church itself could be facing blight. It's an end to serfdom. Footmen, scullions will question authority. They'll ask for rights. He waves his arms. When will all this be curbed? There's no salve by answer, but time is up.
Wonderful.
Great.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's amazing how session after session, authors are saying how the lockdown helped them to actually put together books. Many of them said that they finally got the time that they never had to sit down and actually put together, edit, and collect their thoughts, and then put together the books that they have published. So I'm sure this is, and it's amazing that if you started in March and within 1 year the book is out. I mean, this is amazing. I mean, this happens, but very, very rarely, because usually every book has a gestation period of at least 4 to 5 years. And it's amazing how the two of you managed to put together these poems and bring out this anthology. And I'm sure this is the kind of an anthology that we need in this kind of dark times. And we are very grateful to both of you, Nishi as well as Sachida, for bringing this anthology to HLF. And thank you very much to both of you. And Professor EVR, thank you very much for moderating this session and anchoring this session, and also reading your own poems. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
పున్నాము పూసిందే కోలు పున్నాము ఎన్యాల కోలు పూసి కాసిందే కోలు
నీరు నిమ్మల కింద గన్నెర్ల కింద వంగి పూల